finances are genuinely one of the main topics in Scripture. If I were a force of evil and were seeking to create a fissure between an entire culture of people and their faith, I think I would spend generations digging deep roots about how these things need to be separated.
Hey everyone, this is Courtney Sams.
And this is Caleb Sams.
And this is the Purpose-Filled Money Podcast.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome. We're going to be talking about bridging the gap between faith and finances.
And we figured out that we're really, really bad at this. And at the podcast side of it. And we're easily 45 minutes into the process of recording this. And so we appreciate your grace and patience as you hopefully join us in on what we think is a really exciting conversation that we're going to continue to learn and study and grow together in. But before we do that, I'd love to introduce you to my fabulous co-host. Courtney and I have been married. This December will be 9 years. And we have grown together and enjoyed each other's space. But the thing I think I'm most excited about is having her on this journey with me, because I've told literally every employer I've ever had, in the process of joining their team or working with them or whatever, that they should, instead of working and hiring me, they should just go straight to Courtney. That she is easily better than me at just about everything. And so as we embark on this journey together, Courtney is a impressive wife, an incredible mother, to our almost 2-year-old daughter, Lily. And has just got the ability to just get things done, and to see all of my wild harebrained ideas to fruition and reality. And here we are on this podcast. Idea born probably easily 4 years ago.
Yeah. And Caleb, who I think I used this, the illustration a while ago where, like, if you have a couple, and one's a rock and one's a balloon, I'm the rock that kind of like tethers down the dreamer, where Caleb might just float away, because just ideas are too big. The sky's the literal limit, and that's where his little balloon would go. If there wasn't some tether down to the ground. And so nothing's too big, nothing's too impossible. There's these just huge visions for stuff, and we wouldn't be where we are right now without a lot of those. And so he is easily the most, like, empathetic and caring person. Nobody is going to just to out care for another person than Caleb is. And so it's just exciting to kind of work alongside him now. It's been a dream of ours for a very long time to get to work together, and now we get to work on projects like this now because we have the free time to do it.
And everybody, I think it's this natural thing whenever we talk about working together. I don't know if you get this, but when I'm out and talk about how, Courtney quit her job and we're coming up on a year of her working with us in the practice, and almost everybody's knee-jerk reaction is like, well, how's that been? And it's just like blissful, perfect, everything we've ever dreamed and hoped for.
And not that, like, it's, and this isn't even what this podcast is about, not that it's not been without challenges, but they've been such fun ones. Like, they've just been really good ones. So I'm excited to kind of work on this project and kind of go forward and bring to light something that we both care a lot about, which is just how to, like, what do we do with the tension between faith and finances? Because it's something that, at least historically for me and how I was raised, something that you kind of hold in both hands and they don't go together.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we'll dive into this over the next few episodes. We're intending to build a series out that's kind of our foundational beliefs as we move forward. But first and foremost, I think the main question is why this podcast, why us, why this format maybe, and I think as I think through those things, I think as we have moved in the last few years, as we've worked this practice and tried to help people and churches and organizations navigate forward with their finances, I have consistently I've been confronted by this tension that I think we feel as believers. This constant tension between faith and am I going to trust in the promises of God, that God is going to deliver for me more than I could ever do on my own. That if I were to look at the lilies of the field and the birds of the air and how well my Father takes care of them, how much more so is he going to take care of me? And that guttural response to believing that God holds tomorrow, and therefore we're in good hands. And there's so much peace and hope and comfort in that truth. And then at the same time, as we look through Scripture, encountering and engaging verses and stories and parables and moments where wisdom and truth seems to come through the text, calling us to stewardship and planning and purpose and intention. And I think the tension has been best defined in my experience when we basically have to ask ourselves the question of, God, how much can I plan for tomorrow before I tip the scales over into worrying about tomorrow? Mm-hmm. And wrestling with that tension.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's so crazy because not that we'll ever have it perfectly balanced. It's a lifelong wrestling and struggle, but like that's what leads to anxiety and leads to like whenever you fall into the ultimate extreme of one, it's, I don't know, just where Satan can trap you and keep you.
Yeah. In some version of, as we work through this, whether it's the blog or the show notes or a combination of both, we'll link some. But I mean, all you got to do is Google any of the if you think of the big bad things, if you look through whether it's divorce or suicide or addiction or anxiety or depression, or even we saw one study talking specifically about like the percentage of people exposed to different physical ailments and the correlation between those ailments and whether or not they were like carrying more than whatever the term was, natural debt or whatever, something like that. Yeah. Like the amount of people that had more debt than others, their physical response, like body response to that was higher, that they had more neck pain, back pain, shoulder injuries. Like it was wild. Mm-hmm. And so, we live in this biblical tension between, you can't serve two masters. You can't serve God and mammon. And yet there are times I think we try to pull those two spaces so far apart because we've got to have our faith over here on one side and our finances here on the other side. And what I think what reality is actually showing us is when we do not have a biblical perspective here. Like if you look at all those things. We call it the darkness, right? And as we talk through these episodes and these thoughts, if you look at those spaces in the world that are filled with darkness, and you find the list of causes, finances is almost always one of the top three. I'd imagine for most of those, it's one of the top two when you look at divorces, suicide, thing like that. That in this world, finances, lack of control of them, lack of resources, incorrect use of, and there's a lot of nuance in the midst of that, and a lot of conversations to be had there that we hope to continue to have here. But finances become a major piece to that puzzle. And sometimes I think if we live in a place where we are trying to hold them in two different hands, we keep our faith over here, we get left wondering where to turn.
Yeah. And the craziest thing, and something that I did not realize until we started talking more about this and studying this, is God did not leave us completely unprepared. Like he didn't, like he knew that money and possession and finances was going to be a root of our core problems here on the planet. And so more than 20% of what Jesus spoke of was about money and possessions. And so it's just kind of unpeeling the meanings, kind of bringing them, like those meanings, into like our century and unfolding them. I mean, they were written thousands of years ago. And so it's just, it's hard to talk about and read.
Yeah, Scripture's filled with it. Yeah, you've got so much of what came out of Jesus's mouth. But even beyond that, just in the Bible as a whole, there are 2,500 verses throughout Scripture specifically pertaining to money or possessions and how that interacts in our lives, how that interacts in the kingdom of heaven, how that interacts in God's ownership. And I think while there are all sorts of other resources out there, this is not the first financial podcast. And it will not be the last. It's not the first faith-based podcast, and thankfully it won't be the last. What we are going to try to do to the best of our abilities is live into the truth that we don't have to look anywhere else. Yeah, there might be ancillary resources that help, but what we do and talk about within the way that we interact with money and possessions has to be firmly rooted in Scripture, and thankfully, there is no other source needed. There's more than enough in the Bible to tell us what it is we're supposed to do with our stuff.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Why do you think, I guess, what are some of the common reasons why you think we don't see finances as an expression of faith?
Yeah. I think this maybe just personal, like there's a intentional kind of undercurrent, right? If finances, if our supposition's true, if finances are genuinely one of the main topics in Scripture, if I were a force of evil and were seeking to create a fissure between an entire culture of people and their faith, I think I would spend generations digging deep roots about how these things need to be separated. That where Scripture, and I think we're going to look at this over and over and over again, is going to show us and teach us that the exact opposite is true, that how we spend our money, how we save our money, how we invest our money, how we use and give our money, and how we purchase and own things are direct correlations to our faith, our response to faith, our response to God, and our active participation in the kingdom of heaven. If I were the devil, Satan, the forces of evil in this world, rulers and principalities and all that kind of thing, what I would seek to do would be to continually build up this idea of No, 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 no. These things need to be separated.
You're in control. You got this.
Yeah.
You don't need community. You can do this on your own. You need more. You like all those things. Yeah. Hey everyone, this is Courtney. I just wanted to pop in here real quick and just let you know that in addition to working with households on finances, we also work with churches and congregations and offer stuff like seminars on topics like generosity, aging parents, and we'll work with parents on teaching kids about generosity and stuff like that. So if you're interested and if you want to talk more or learn more about what we do, our contact information will be in the show notes and you can reach out if you like. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. I guess we could go into kind of like what to expect moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, so hopefully, I mean, we've got a handful of things we're hoping to see come forward. We're going to continue this conversation. Like I said, the next few episodes we've got planned out will kind of we're going to spend some time focusing on our foundational beliefs around finances, scripture. What does faith play in that, and those types of things. We're hoping to produce episodes weekly. Mm-hmm. We have goals and dreams and visions to have guest appearances and different roles in different spaces in our lives to bring people into this conversation. We have a hope to maybe encourage and invite, audience participation to some level as we maybe create a source to answer questions and to dig in together. We view this, I hope, as both a resource that you can turn to and look forward, but also a community where, we hope to learn and study together. What does this mean? What does it look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we, some ways that you can even interact is we have an Instagram, the Purpose Filled Money Instagram handle. I'll link that in the show notes.
Yeah.
We have it's our business Facebook page.
Well, I think we're going to create a podcast Facebook page.
Okay.
Too.
Well, then we'll have and I'll link that too.
And we'll link it all to everything. Yeah. We'll get some stuff created. We're going to try and maybe not for this episode, but for following episodes, we're going to try and create some more, blog style kind of recaps of the episode. So if that's more your style and you're looking more for a literature approach to this conversation, we hope to kind of fill that void some as well.
Yeah. And then next episode, do you want to tease a little bit about what it's going to be about?
Yeah. So we have these foundational episodes that we're hoping to engage in. And the next, am I doing this right? The next 6 episodes, we're going to walk through next what we're calling the system. And we kind of have this formula that we want to help lay out and build that starts with, what we believe, our internal thoughts, our internal interpretations of money. When we sit down with folks, we call them money scripts, and we'll go deeper into this. But what we believe about money and how that internal thought process, translates to external behavior. And then beyond just what we do in our lives, the impact it has. And so we have this system that we want to walk through and how we develop. And then we're going to move into the tension that we talked about some today and really do a deep dive on the tension between faith and finances, the tension between trust and abundance, and all these different layers of tension that we experience as we try to engage faith and finances and bridge that gap. And then I'm really excited about this one, and it might just fall totally flat. We're going to introduce to you our own take on a parable, and I might leave that one at that, and see what that does for you. Then we're going to spend this intentional episode 5, the Word. And really just intentionally, because that's got to be one of our foremost foundational beliefs, right? As we build out these foundational episodes, that this is the source through which everything we say flows from. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And interpreting it correctly and as we can.
Yeah. As we learn. And as we grow.
That's important.
Yeah. And we have an episode called The Practice. And I think this will flow from the majority of our episodes. You'll see that one of our main tenets is going to be generosity. What does that look like in our lives? What does that stem from? What does it change in our hearts? And how do we maybe learn how to put generosity on the same page that Scripture does with other spiritual practices like prayer and reading Scripture and solitude and community, that we would understand that Scripture likens generosity to those things that make us more like Jesus.
It's not just a good thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual discipline that will lead you closer.
Yeah. And then our final foundational episodes, the shift.
Yeah.
We've got, especially in our culture today, we've just got, for the most part, we are in desperate need of a perspective shift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we can dive more into this, but at the end of the day, like, you can pretty much guess like what that shift needs to be. And it's that God owns everything. And when you adopt that and you live it, and that's what your practice is, and that's how everything flows through, like, what will that do to your life and to the life of people around you?
Yeah.
And so
there's our next 6 episodes. This is the Purpose-Filled Money Podcast.
Yeah.
And if you've stuck with us this long,
we thank you.
Thank you so much.
And we hope that you come back next week for episode 2, The System, and the episodes thereafter.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.